So now we're dividing, and when you have fractions and you're dividing fractions is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So we'd have negative 12 on the top and 7n in brackets squared. Well, 7n in brackets squared, I could rewrite that. 7n cubed over 4 times negative 12 over 49n squared. So dividing means multiply by the reciprocal, and the rules for multiplying fractions is you multiply your numerators, you multiply your denominators. You do not need to get a common denominator when you're multiplying. Now, I could multiply across, and I could multiply across on the bottom. However, sometimes if you can simplify early, it makes your life easier. Let's start with the variables. Do you see any variables that are the same? We have n cubed on the top and n squared on the bottom. Can you see that that would simplify? Your n squareds would go away, and you would be left with n to the 1 on top. So if I just do that, and I'm taking more steps than I would normally do, just because it helps see what's happening. Now before I multiply 7 times 12, because maybe your 12 times table is not the best, and before I multiply 4 times 49, because maybe your 49 times table isn't the best, I look at my numbers and say, is there anything in my numbers that would simplify nice? For example, 7 over 4 doesn't simplify nice, but 7 over 49 does. What does that simplify to? Leaves you with 1 and 7. You see anything else you could simplify? The negative 12 and 4, what would that leave you with? Negative 3. So I'll switch colors here just so we can see that when I did this, that left me with negative 3. We have to be careful because sometimes when we start canceling things out, we might lose track of the numbers that we have. So we have to be careful with that. What am I left with in my numerator? I have a 1, I have an n, and I have a negative 3. So if I multiplied my 1 and my n and my negative 3 together, I would get negative 3n. What's left in my denominator? Just the 7. And so my final answer simplified would be negative 3n over 7. Okay? Now, as you get better at these, okay, as you get better at these, you might have been able to say at this step, I'm going to cancel my n's out. And I know that I'm going to be left with one end on top. I'm going to go to my numbers. 7 and 1, negative 3. And you might want to color code things so that you can see what you're doing. But all that canceled out and say, what do I have left on top? I still have negative 3n over 7. You could get that answer that quick. But you see the danger in doing too much at once? You might forget something or not see what's going on, or you look at it and go, what just happened? Right? I think if I look at that work right now, I would go, whoa, Mr. JR, I just tuned out for like a little bit and I'm lost. So it's not bad to do it slowly, one step at a time. Let's look at B. So in B, we're dividing. Whenever you're dividing, the first step is multiply by the reciprocal. So we'll take our second fraction and write the reciprocal. Everything is multiplied together here. So if any factors are identical, you could simplify them. Okay, so in that case, the one that's obvious is the x minus 3's are going to go away, right? Anything else obvious that just cancels out? The x's. So I'm going to cancel out the x's in a different color. Can you see that those would cancel out? The 5 and the 10 can simplify, right? But why don't we just cancel out things first so we don't get too complicated? So I did a couple of things canceled out. What am I left with? Maybe I'll take the time. In this first fraction, I'm left with 5 over 2. In the second fraction, I'm left with 3x plus 5 over 10. Now, is there anything else that can simplify? Now what Kobe said, the 5 over 10. The 5 over 10 could reduce to 1 over 2. Do you see anything else that would simplify? No. So at this point, we could actually multiply across on the top of our fraction. 1 times 3 would be 3x plus 5. On the bottom, I have 2 times 2, which is 4. If there's nothing else that simplifies, we would leave it like this. And you don't distribute. Often we like to keep things in the factored form because it's in the factored form that we can check if there's more things that can be simplified. We're going to find out in example 3 that we actually have to factor first to help us simplify things. Okay, so questions for practice. 4. You did 5a, now you're going to have 5b. You've done 6a and b, now you're going to do 6c and d. And you've done 11a, now we're going to do 11b.